the disappearance. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, because after this story, you'll never look at love or loyalty the same way again. It started like any ordinary morning inside the Lauderdale County Jail in Florence, Alabama. Officers clocked in, inmates lined up for roll call, and routine echoed through the cold metal halls. But by noon, something was off. One of their own, Vicky White, the Assistant Director of Corrections, was gone. And so was Casey White, a 6'9" convicted murderer awaiting trial for capital murder. At first, no one panicked. Vicky was trusted, admired even. 17 years of spotless service made her untouchable. She told the booking officers she was taking Casey for a mental health evaluation at the courthouse, a procedure she'd done dozens of times before. But when the afternoon sun fell and no one had heard back, that trust began to crack. Calls went unanswered. The courthouse had no record of any appointment. The transport car was missing. By 6 p.m., a bolo, be on the lookout, was issued across the state. Investigators pored over surveillance footage, hoping to find something, anything. Then, there it was. The last image of Vicky White walking calmly out of the detention center beside Casey, holding the door open for him. No handcuffs, no backup, just two figures walking into the bright Alabama morning and vanishing. News spread fast. The media called it the unthinkable escape. The sheriff's department was in disbelief. How could a veteran officer, days away from retirement, vanish with a murderer? Rumors exploded. Was she kidnapped? Threatened? Or had she helped him? Detectives searched Vicky's home. What they found changed everything. Her house was sold for far below market value. Bank records showed she had withdrawn $90,000 in cash. Her car, found abandoned in a shopping center, was purchased just days earlier under an alias. Every piece of evidence screamed planning, not panic. By day 3, the FBI joined the case. Billboards across the South carried their faces. Anonymous tips poured in from across the country. Some said they'd been spotted at gas stations. Others claimed to have seen them in Tennessee. But every lead went cold. Then, on day 5, the sheriff faced the cameras and said what everyone feared to admit. "She's not hostage," he said grimly. "She's a willing participant." The country gasped. The headlines changed overnight, from officer missing to the prison love escape. But as the manhunt expanded, a chilling question haunted everyone watching. Just how far was Vicky White willing to go for love? And when the truth came out, even the FBI wasn't ready for what they'd find. The manhunt had grown into one of the largest in recent U.S. history. 11 different law enforcement agencies were involved, from local Alabama deputies to the FBI and U.S. Marshals. Helicopters swept highways, patrols hit rural back roads, and checkpoints dotted small-town exits. But the pair, Vicky White and Casey White, seemed to vanish into thin air. For a week, investigators worked around the clock, trying to reconstruct every step Vicky had taken before the escape. They found she had bought a 2007 Ford Edge just days earlier, registered under a fake name. Security cameras captured that same vehicle cruising out of Florence the morning they disappeared. Inside the trunk, when it was finally located abandoned in Tennessee, police found a stash of blonde hair dye, a motel map, and a burner cell phone. Each clue painted a clearer picture of just how calculated this escape had been. Vicky had not been coerced. She had planned it, down to the minute. The jail's internal review revealed she had personally requested to escort Casey alone that day, breaking protocol. Her colleagues remembered her last words that morning: "I'll be right back." Investigators soon discovered that Vicky and Casey's relationship had started months earlier. She had visited him regularly, well beyond professional boundaries. Some inmates later said she slipped him extra food, even phone privileges. Others whispered about how she smiled at him differently. At first, no one believed it, but text records and secret letters told the truth. A forbidden romance had been growing right under everyone's nose. Across the country, the public watched as the story twisted from a prison break to a dark love story. Reporters called it the Bonnie and Clyde of Alabama. Casey White, violent criminal, had found something he'd never had before: loyalty. And Vicky, the perfect officer, had found something she thought she was missing: devotion. but cracks began to form. Gas station attendants described seeing two nervous people paying in cash, wearing wigs. One said the woman's hands shook when she handed over the money. Surveillance images confirmed it. Vicky and Casey were alive, and they were moving north. The FBI closed in, tracing a series of receipts from discount stores and car rentals. On the 10th day, they caught a break. A man reported a suspicious couple staying at a motel in Evansville, Indiana, driving a Cadillac that had just been bought with cash. The license plate led back to Vicky. When agents surrounded the motel, they spotted Casey outside, loading supplies into the car. But before they could act, the Cadillac roared to life. Vicky behind the wheel, Casey shouting directions. The chase began. Through rain-slicked streets and sirens that tore through the air, the fugitives raced toward the highway. Vicky's hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, eyes wide. She knew this was the end. Casey yelled for her to keep going, but deep down, she knew they wouldn't make it. And in that split second of chaos, one decision sealed both their fates. When the smoke cleared, investigators would find more than just wreckage. They'd uncover the haunting truth about what really drove Vicky White to cross the line she swore to protect. The last ride. Rain hammered the windshield as the black Cadillac tore through the streets of Evansville, Indiana. Police cruisers screamed behind them, sirens slicing the air, tires skidding across wet asphalt. It was the final act of a chase that had gripped America. A runaway corrections officer and a convicted murderer on the run for 11 days. Inside the car, Vicky White's breathing was ragged. Her hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel. Her eyes darting between the road and the rearview mirror, where flashing blue lights drew closer with every second. Casey White, towering beside her, barked directions. "Go left. Take the back road," he shouted, his deep voice cracking under panic. But Vicky didn't answer. She knew it was over. Every choice she had made, every lie, every moment of blind devotion, had led to this stretch of asphalt. She had outsmarted law enforcement for 11 days. There was no 11th hour escape this time. The chase twisted through small-town streets until the Cadillac careened off Highway 41, flipping into a ditch. The world spun in a blur of metal, glass, and screams. When the dust settled, the car was upside down, smoke curling from the hood. Police swarmed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. What they didn't know was that inside, Vicky White was bleeding, clutching a small handgun against her chest. Her voice cracked as she whispered to Casey, "We're not going back." Casey shouted for her to stop, but the sound of sirens drowned him out. A single gunshot echoed across the field. The noise silenced everything. The shouting, the engines, the chaos. Just like that, the chase ended. When officers approached, they found Casey White crawling out of the wreck, his massive frame trembling. He raised his hands and surrendered. Inside the overturned car, Vicky was gone. A single bullet had ended the woman who once swore to uphold the law and broke it for love. The news broke within minutes. Across the country, headlines screamed, "Vicky White dead, Casey White captured alive." It was the story no one could believe, yet everyone watched unfold in real time. A respected officer turned fugitive, a cold-blooded killer turned accomplice, and an ending written in tragedy. In the aftermath, the investigation revealed the depth of Vicky's planning. She had sold her home weeks before the escape, liquidated her savings, and purchased the getaway vehicles under false names. She even researched the best states to hide in. Every move was calculated, every step precise. Yet beneath the precision was something heartbreakingly human: loneliness. Those who knew Vicky said she was quiet, kind, and dedicated to her job. But behind that professionalism was a woman who lived alone, worked long hours, and trusted very few people. Casey White saw that vulnerability and exploited it. From behind bars, he wrote her letters, manipulated her emotions, and promised her freedom from the monotony of her life. Slowly, she crossed a line she could never return from. In his post-arrest interview, Casey's words chilled investigators. "She wasn't supposed to die," he said. "She was my friend, my only friend." But the truth was darker. He had used her, and she had believed every word. For days after the incident, the Lauderdale County Sheriff's Department mourned a fallen colleague, even as they grappled with betrayal. "She was one of us," the sheriff said quietly at a press conference, and she lost herself in a world she should have known better than to enter. The final images from that day, the overturned car, the rain, the flashing blue lights, became a haunting symbol of what love and desperation can do. It wasn't a story about escape anymore. It was a story about how even the strongest people can fall when emotion blinds reason. Casey White was sent back to prison under maximum security. He was later convicted for escape and murder charges unrelated to Vicky's death. Vicky was buried in her hometown, her name forever etched between honor and scandal. In the end, the world didn't remember her as the officer she once was, but as the woman who gave up everything for a man who gave her nothing. And as the years passed, one question still echoed through the walls of every prison and precinct across America. Was it love, or was it manipulation? If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, because the next escape will make this one look like a rehearsal.